There are moments in life when heaven feels silent. You pray, but the echo comes back empty. You cry, but there's no comfort in the night. You stand in the hallway of transition, knocking on doors that do not open, waiting for answers that do not come. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that silence means abandonment. But let me tell you, silence is not a sign that God has left you. It's a sign that He's working in ways you cannot yet see. He is not absent. He is strategic. He is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. You see, we serve a God who doesn't need to shout to be effective. He doesn't need to move loud to move powerfully. Sometimes His greatest work is done in silence, in the background, in the places where your human eyes can't see and your mind can't comprehend. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean He's not in it. Just because you can't trace His hand doesn't mean you can't trust His heart. Think about it. Some of the most profound miracles in Scripture happened without warning. No trumpet, no drum roll. Just the sudden shift of divine intervention. When the Red Sea parted, Moses didn't hear an announcement from heaven. He raised the rod in obedience and God moved. The sea didn't speak. It split. And sometimes in your life, the sea won't warn you before it opens. It will just shift, and you'll know God has been there all along. Silent seasons are where faith is tested and character is formed. That's where God hides you while He heals you. It's where He strengthens you in secret so you don't collapse in public. It's where He develops the strategy that hell will never see coming. And that's the kind of God we serve. A God who fights silently so the enemy can't counterattack. A God who covers you in stillness so your enemies think you're vulnerable, while heaven is actually gearing up to release victory. Some of you are going through battles that don't make sense. You've been faithful, you've prayed, you've fasted, and yet the doors seem shut and the heavens feel closed. Let me encourage you, God isn't late. He's not ignoring you. He's not indifferent to your pain. He's just fighting in silence. And when God fights in silence, He doesn't just give you victory. He gives you undeniable victory. He gives you a testimony that confuses the enemy, a breakthrough that doesn't need an explanation, a promotion that doesn't make sense on paper, a healing that baffles doctors, a peace that doesn't match the chaos around you. And when He moves like that, people will look at you and ask, "How did you make it?" And you'll smile and say, "I don't even know, but I do know who brought me through." That's the power of a silent battle fought by a mighty God. He doesn't just deliver you, He elevates you without noise, without warning, without validation from the crowd. Because when God fights your battles silently, you won't need the noise. The outcome will make all the noise necessary. So don't mistake divine silence for divine absence. Don't let the quiet fool you. God is not through. He's just getting started. And what He's preparing in silence, He's about to reveal in power. Keep standing. Keep believing. The silence isn't the end. It's the setup. Because when He finally shows what He was doing all along, even your enemies will have to admit, it was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. God's moves are often invisible, but make no mistake, they are always intentional. Just because you can't see the hand of God doesn't mean it isn't moving. Just because the waters look still doesn't mean there's not a current beneath the surface shifting everything in your favor. God doesn't need to inform you before he intervenes. He doesn't always speak in thunder or flash in lightning. Sometimes he just moves silently, strategically, sovereignly. This is the part of the journey where trust must rise above logic. Because if you only trust what you can see, you will miss what God is doing in the dark. Faith isn't about seeing the path. It's about walking it even when it's hidden. God's movements are often camouflaged in the ordinary. He will hide the extraordinary inside of the everyday. He'll place deliverance in a disguise. He'll wrap purpose in pain. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake the hidden for the absent and the process for punishment. There are seasons where God will allow your situation to look unchanged so the enemy won't see the miracle unfolding. He doesn't need to show off. He needs to bring you out. That's why some of your greatest breakthroughs come after your longest silences. Because when God moves invisibly, he's removing obstacles you didn't even know were in your way. He's shifting things in realms you can't access. He's talking to people you haven't even met yet, setting up favor before you ever get in the room. That's the kind of God he is: strategic, precise, intentional. He doesn't waste moves. Every delay has a design. Every detour has a purpose. Every silence is filled with divine intention. While you're wondering if he heard you, he's already responded, just not in the way you expected. You're looking for fireworks, but he's laying foundations. You want a sign, but he's working on a shift. Think about how Jesus healed the blind man. He didn't shout. He didn't call down angels. He knelt in the dirt, spit into clay, and quietly put it on the man's eyes. No announcement, no crowd reaction. Just a silent miracle in a messy place. That's how God moves, with purpose, not performance. With intention, not impulse. He's not obligated to show you how. He just wants you to trust that he is. Some of you are trying to track God's hand like a map, looking for patterns, trying to predict the next move. But God is not predictable. He is providential. He doesn't need your permission to reroute the plan. He just needs your obedience to follow him when you don't understand. Because what he's doing in your life is bigger than your eyes can see and deeper than your mind can grasp. And when it all comes together, when what you didn't see suddenly makes sense, when what you couldn't explain becomes undeniable, you'll realize that every invisible move was part of an intentional masterpiece. That every quiet step he took was leading you to the loudest praise you've ever known. Because when God fights silently, he doesn't just give you the win. He gives you the why behind the wait. He shows you that every no was protecting you, every delay was preparing you, and every unseen shift was securing the promise. So don't be discouraged by what you can't see. Don't be disheartened by what doesn't make sense. If it looks like nothing is happening, trust that something is. God is not still. He is stealthy. He is moving with intention. And when he reveals what he was doing, your response won't be confusion. It'll be worship. Because what was hidden will become holy, and what was silent will shout. God was here all along. When God fights your battles silently, one of the most powerful signs is this: your enemies become confused, not because you argued back, not because you defended yourself, not because you proved them wrong, but because you kept quiet while God handled it, because you stayed planted when they tried to shake you, Because while they were busy plotting, mocking, and expecting your downfall, heaven was moving. Let me tell you, nothing disarms the enemy faster than a victory they can't explain. When God steps into the fight, he doesn't always confront your enemies. Sometimes he just confuses them. He lets them watch you rise when they expected you to fall. He lets them witness your success in silence without needing your side of the story. When God fights for you, vindication doesn't come through arguments. It comes through evidence. And the kind of evidence God provides doesn't need defense. It speaks for itself. You see, when God is your defender, you won't need to clap back. You won't need to correct the lies. You won't need to match their energy. All you have to do is stay in position, stay in purpose, and stay in prayer. While they talk, God works. While they watch, God wins. And when he does, their confusion becomes your confirmation. That's how God works. He uses what was meant to hurt you as a platform to elevate you. Remember, the enemy isn't just threatened by your blessing. He's confused by your peace. How are you still standing after what you've been through? How are you still worshiping with everything collapsing around you? How are you still giving when it looks like you've lost everything? That's the part they can't figure out. Because when God fights silently, he doesn't just deliver you, he keeps you. He keeps your mind when it should have snapped. He keeps your heart when it should have gone cold. He keeps your purpose alive when the pressure tried to kill it. You become the kind of testimony that makes people ask questions. How did they get the job with no connections? How did she heal when the doctors gave up? How did he bounce back from that betrayal? And the answer is simple. God fought the battle they didn't see. He moved in silence so your victory could speak. He shifted things they had no control over. He caused favor to find you in places your name was never mentioned. That's why you don't have to announce what God is doing. Let the results speak. There are some blessings that don't make sense to the natural eye. Some breakthroughs that look too fast, too big, too unearned. And that's exactly how God likes it. Because he will bless you in a way that leaves people scratching their heads and looking for explanations that don't exist. He will make your life a mystery to your enemies, a miracle to your friends, and a message to the world that says, this is what happens when heaven fights for you. So let them wonder, let them speculate, let them talk. Because while they're busy trying to figure it out, God is already writing the next chapter. And this chapter is not about revenge. It's about revelation. It's about God showing who you are by showing who he is through you. He's not just vindicating your name. He's glorifying his. And when it's all said and done, you won't have to say a word. Because the silence that once felt like a burden will become the backdrop to the loudest kind of victory. One they can't predict, one they can't block, and one they'll never be able to explain. You don't always understand it while you're in it. When you're in the middle of the storm, when you're walking through confusion, when you're waiting in silence, nothing seems to add up. You're praying, but the heavens are quiet. You're faithful, but the doors remain closed. You're sowing in tears, but the harvest feels delayed. But the truth is, the outcome will always reveal the strategy. When God fights silently, he doesn't reveal his hand during the battle. He shows his wisdom in the results. God doesn't owe you an explanation while he's moving. He's not required to keep you updated like a GPS. He's not obligated to make his timing match your schedule, because what he's doing is layered, intentional, and far-reaching. He's not just solving a problem, he's setting a foundation. He's not just getting you out of the trial, he's building the strength you'll need for where you're going. And you won't see all of it until you get to the other side. It's only after the dust settles, after the prayers have been answered, after the tears have dried, that you begin to see how it all fit together. You'll look back and realize that what felt like delay was actually divine positioning. That what felt like rejection was actually protection. That what you thought was a detour was the only road that would have led to destiny. Because God doesn't waste a moment. He just doesn't always explain them in real time. Think about Joseph, betrayed, sold, imprisoned, and through it all, God said nothing. But when Joseph was elevated to the palace, when famine hit the land, and when his brothers stood before him in need, suddenly the pieces clicked. The outcome revealed the strategy. Joseph said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what happens when heaven writes your story. God will take what was supposed to break you and use it to bless others. But you only see that when you come out of the silence and into the revelation. You may not understand why you had to cry like that, why you had to be isolated, why the people you counted on walked away. But trust this, God saw what you didn't. You may knew the motives that were hidden. He knew the timing that was perfect. He knew the lessons you needed. And when it all unfolds, you'll see the fingerprints of God on every closed door, every delayed answer, every lonely night. There's a strategy in the silence, a plan in the pain. And even when it looked like nothing was moving, everything was being aligned. Heaven doesn't need your understanding to operate. It needs your obedience. And if you can keep trusting through the unknown, if you can keep walking when the map disappears, you'll arrive in a place that makes the struggle worth it. Because when the outcome finally appears, it doesn't just vindicate your faith, it teaches you something. It shows you that God was always in control, even when life felt out of control. It shows you that patience wasn't punishment, it was preparation. That silence wasn't neglect, it was protection. And suddenly you'll thank God, not just for what he did, but for how he did it. You'll realize the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with strategy. So don't despise the process. Don't curse the wait. Don't give up in the middle. Because when the plan unfolds, when the victory manifests, when the breakthrough comes, you'll see it clear. The silence had purpose. The outcome was proof. And everything God was doing behind the scenes will speak louder than 1,000 words ever could. There's something extraordinary about how God works. How he will bless you without a parade. How he will shift your entire life without sending a warning. When God fights your battles silently, you won't always see the war, but you will see the win. You won't hear the trumpet sound, but you'll wake up in victory. He doesn't always move with noise. Sometimes he just delivers, quietly, swiftly, powerfully. That's what makes his blessings so undeniable. Because when the blessing comes without noise, you know it wasn't your doing. You know it wasn't your connections, your RA Summe, your resources. It wasn't a result of human effort. It was divine intervention. That's why silent battles often lead to the loudest testimonies. You didn't have to fight your way into the room, but suddenly you're sitting at the table. You didn't manipulate the moment, but suddenly the opportunity found you. Because when God fights in silence, He positions you without performance. He promotes you without politics. There are some seasons where God removes the spotlight on purpose. He wants no distractions, no applause, no interference. He wants the blessing to be pure, not for show, not for status, not for validation. Just Him and you. Just purpose and timing. Just grace and favor. Because sometimes the quieter the blessing, the deeper the impact. What God is doing in your life doesn't always need to be announced to the world. Sometimes it just needs to be experienced. Look at how He brought Peter out of prison. The church was praying, but nobody saw the chains fall. Nobody saw the angel walking him past the guards. There was no sound of struggle, no alarm, no drama. By the time Peter knocked on the door, the people were still praying for what God had already done. That's how God moves. By the time people find out, it's already finished. By the time they start asking questions, the miracle is already standing at the door. Some of you are being blessed right now and don't even realize it yet. Doors are opening behind the scenes. People are speaking your name in rooms you've never entered. Provision is being released while you sleep. Your name is being aligned with favor without your knowledge. And when it shows up, when the breakthrough becomes visible, it won't come with drama, it'll come with clarity. It won't come with noise, it'll come with peace. You won't have to force anything. You won't have to fight for attention. You won't have to make announcements. God will cause it to happen so naturally, so quietly, that the only thing you'll be able to say is, "This had to be God." And that's exactly the point. When God blesses you like that, there's no confusion about the source. Nobody can take credit. Nobody can steal the glory. Because no one else saw the battle. No one else saw the prayers, the tears, the warfare that happened in silence. That's why you don't need to be discouraged when it looks like nothing's happening. When the phone isn't ringing, when the recognition doesn't come, when the crowd doesn't clap, because God doesn't need an audience to bless you. He just needs your trust. He just needs your faithfulness in private, so He can reward you in ways that no human effort could have produced. So hold your peace. Stay planted. Keep your head up, even when it's quiet. Because when God fights your battles silently, you won't need to make noise. The blessing will speak. The promotion will speak. The peace you carry will speak. The glow on your face, the strength in your step, the favor on your life, that will speak. You'll be blessed without having to broadcast, elevated without explanation. And when it happens, you'll know God was working the whole time. There is something sacred about surviving what was meant to destroy you. When God fights your battles silently, you don't just come through, you come through different, stronger, wiser, sharper, quieter in the flesh, but louder in the spirit. Because every silent battle has a residue. And that residue is not just survival, it's transformation. You don't walk out the same way you walked in. God doesn't just protect you. He shapes you. That's why some people don't recognize you anymore. That's why some relationships don't fit like they used to. Because the battle changed you. You didn't just win. you grew. You didn't just make it through, you matured in it. God used the silence to stretch your faith, to strip away pride, to deepen your dependence on Him. The process refined you. You prayed differently. You worshiped from deeper places. You learned to hear God when no one else was speaking life into you. What they didn't know was that while you were quiet, you were being built. While they thought nothing was happening, you were in a divine classroom. Heaven was mentoring you in the fire. God was sharpening your discernment in the dark. And now you carry something you didn't have before, your spiritual authority, the kind that doesn't come from titles or platforms, but from endurance, from walking with God when no one was watching, from staying faithful when you had every reason to quit. You begin to realize that the battle wasn't just about defeating your enemies. It was about developing your identity. God didn't just want to deliver you from something. He wanted to prepare you for something greater. That silent warfare was training for the next level. It was discipline for the destiny. He had to teach you how to function without applause, how to move without needing confirmation, how to obey without explanation. Because where you're going, the strength you carry will matter more than the crowd that claps. The blessing after the battle isn't just the breakthrough. It's the version of you that emerged. The one who prays with fire. The one who doesn't flinch at pressure. The one who knows how to walk through a storm and not be shaken. You become a walking testimony, not just because you made it out, but because you carry the weight of that silence with grace. You know what it's like to cry without answers. You know what it's like to worship when nothing makes sense. And now, you speak with a depth you didn't have before. People will see the glory, but they won't know the cost. They'll hear your wisdom, but won't know the wounds it came from. They'll admire your strength, but have no idea about the nights you almost gave up. That's the beauty of God's silent battles. They produce public fruit, but require private crushing. But oh, what comes out of that crushing? Oil, anointing, power, a voice that pierces the noise, a faith that is unshakable. And when you look back, you won't wish it had been easier. You'll thank God it was silent. You'll thank Him for not letting you skip the process. Because the version of you standing now wouldn't have been born any other way. You were forged in silence, but now you speak with clarity. You were broken in secret, but now you lead with authority. The silence was never about keeping you hidden. It was about making you ready. So when God fights your battles silently, don't fear the quiet. Don't rush the outcome, because He's not just bringing you through, He's bringing you up. And when it's all said and done, you'll walk in a power that silence taught you how to carry. You'll know who you are because you met Him deeply when nobody else saw it. And that is what changes everything.